There is a version of you lying still beneath the dust of everything you were once taught to endure, the roles you played to be loved, the limits you embraced because you mistook them for your own boundaries. You are not stuck because you are weak. You are stuck because you have lived too long with outdated beliefs, old wounds, and expired versions of yourself. Machiavelli understood that power comes not from adding more armor, but from stripping away the illusions that make you weak. To become a whole person, you must dare to descend into the depths of the unconscious, into the memories you avoid, the shadows you believe you must not touch if you want to remain safe. This is not a journey of adding, but of subtracting, of dismantling the walls that have kept you from meeting your truest self. And if you truly want to live a lighter, more authentic life, you must begin with the hardest task, releasing what has been silently limiting you every single day. In this video, I will guide you through 10 things you must quietly let go of if you wish to step into a new chapter, one that is more honest, more spacious, and more aligned with who you really are. This is not a self-improvement checklist, but a process of unraveling the unconscious structures that have kept you small for years. Before we continue, ask yourself, if you carry everything weighing on you today into the next few years, how different will your life be? And if the answer is not much, then you are exactly where you need to be. Because this journey of releasing does not just change your life, it returns you to yourself. Number 1, your loyalty to an old version of yourself. There are moments when you feel as if your life is being pulled backward, even though your mind knows you've changed so much. This isn't bad luck, nor a lack of courage. It arises because an older version of you still lives within, one you haven't yet had the bravery to lay to rest. Machiavelli taught that to hold new territory, you must relinquish the old strategies that no longer serve you. Clusters of memories, beliefs, and emotional reactions so deeply ingrained they feel like part of you long past their expiration date. You think you're making choices, but in truth, you're repeating survival patterns shaped by a child who was once afraid, overlooked, or forced to shrink to stay safe. If you pay attention, you'll notice many of your behaviors today do not belong to the person you've become. For example, in a meeting, you stay silent, even when you know your opinion is right. The cause isn't in the present moment. It traces back to a time when speaking up got you mocked or dismissed. Or when someone praises you, you reflexively shrink as if recognition were dangerous. You're responding through the memory of who you were, not the awareness of who you are now. Imagine your old self as a suit of armor that has endured too many battles. It once protected you from pain, fear, and harm. But now every step forward makes it tighten around your chest. This armor is not your enemy. It is simply no longer intact nor suited for the path ahead. And the moment will come when you must remove it with your own trembling hands. Loyalty to your old self creates a paradox. You want change, yet you're the one building the barricades. Machiavelli understood that fortune favors those who adapt, not those who cling to the familiar. The unconscious does not care who you aspire to become. It only seeks to repeat what is familiar. Familiar means survival. The unfamiliar means risk. Thus, you are pulled back to old reactions, old emotions, old stories, even when they suffocate you. It's like clinging to a coat that no longer fits. You know it's too tight, yet you keep it because it once warmed you in a distant winter, and you forget that you've grown. Before you continue, pause for one slow moment and ask yourself, this old armor, these reflexes, fears, and roles that once kept you alive, are they still protecting you or merely keeping you small? And if you were to set it down today, what version of life might open before you? One you've never allowed yourself to imagine. Loyalty to an outdated self keeps you from ever reaching the core of who you are. It traps you in an emotional comfort zone while draining the life out of you. Machiavelli believed that true power lies in perceiving reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. Every soul has a natural trajectory, one that always moves toward expansion, not contraction. Stagnation is not your nature. It is simply the consequence of clinging to an identity that no longer fits. If you feel suffocated, it may be because you have outgrown the shell you're still trying to crawl into. Liberation begins the moment you dare to acknowledge a simple truth. You are no longer that person, and this is not a betrayal of your past. It is the kindest thing you can do for yourself. Number 2, the habit of self-sabotage. Your loyalty to an old self keeps you stuck. But there is another force far more subtle. It doesn't pull you back into the past. It pulls you down the moment the future begins to open. This is the habit of self-sabotage, the presence that appears exactly when you're about to step into the newest chapter of your life. Self-sabotage does not arise from weakness. It is the unconscious defending itself, choosing what is familiar over what is good. Machiavelli observed that men often ruin themselves by refusing to abandon a failing course, even when a new path is clear. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. People do not flee from failure. They flee because inner expansion demands that they confront themselves. If you observe carefully, you'll notice this. You often drop what matters most right when it begins to bloom. After weeks of consistency, you suddenly quit. When a promising opportunity appears, you come up with a perfectly logical reason to decline. When someone treats you kindly, you distrust them instead of receiving the affection. None of this happens because you don't want to grow, but because a part of you whispers. Going further means letting go of the safety you've always known. Self-sabotage is like a pair of legs long accustomed to curling inward, suddenly being asked to stand upright. The trembling is not a sign you're going the wrong way. It is simply the body adjusting to a posture it has never practiced. Humans don't fear the dark. They fear the clarity of light illuminating the places they once kept hidden. Some people spend their whole lives used to inconsistent love to the unpredictability of others. When they encounter someone patient and kind, they feel uneasy. It's because peace triggers panic in a nervous system that has lived in constant alert. The unconscious whispers, "This doesn't resemble anything you've known." And so they withdraw not because they don't want love, but because they are unfamiliar with being loved safely. Machiavelli called this the failure to recognize when the times have changed. When the survival instinct interprets change as a threat, it generates just enough chaos to pull you back into old patterns. You procrastinate. You criticize yourself. You force yourself to stay busy to avoid facing things. Or you do one small thing just enough to sabotage your progress. All of it serves one purpose: to keep you where the unconscious believes you are safe. The danger is this: self-sabotage is quiet. It hides behind reasonable excuses. It uses your own voice to deceive you, and each time it wins, you believe a little more that you are incapable. To break this cycle, you don't need to become tougher. You only need to be conscious enough to notice the moment the old darkness steps onto the stage. Awareness is the severing point of the unconscious, and when you choose to move forward, even with palms sweating, you begin rewriting your reflexes. Number 3, energy-draining relationships. But sometimes the root of your exhaustion doesn't lie within you at all. It comes from relationships that appear familiar yet quietly drain your emotional vitality every day. And so the next step is learning to recognize those connections and to walk away when you must. Not everyone who enters your life brings light. Some arrive with a smile, but beneath it are endless needs. Some call your name in a warm voice, yet somehow make you shrink each time you stand beside them. Machiavelli warned that a prince must know how to recognize wolves in sheep's clothing. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But not every transformation leads you to a better version of yourself. Some relationships don't help you grow. They wear you down day after day. You don't notice it at first. You simply feel heavy after each conversation. Even when nothing stressful seems to have happened, you find yourself choosing your words carefully, soothing, placating, maintaining harmony, as if you are carrying someone else's emotions on your back. And then one day you realize you are not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you've been living for two. Some people drain you in the most elegant, silent ways. They don't yell. They don't demand outright. They simply let you hold their emotional burdens as if your role in their life is to keep them stable. For example, in a friend group, there may be someone who seeks you out only when they are falling apart, yet disappears when you need to be heard. You become the life raft they cling to whenever they panic, but they rarely check whether you're sinking, and if you're brave enough to answer a difficult question, ask yourself in this story, who have you been? If you wish, share that small truth in the comments. It may be the first step towards seeing yourself more clearly. Energy-draining relationships usually begin with compassion. You think they need you. You think you are helping, but in reality, you are slowly losing yourself to keep them standing. Machiavelli believed that what we attract in relationships often mirrors our own perceived strength or vulnerability. If you repeatedly find yourself with manipulators, takers, or people who never reciprocate, it may be because deep within you still believe you deserve only scraps of affection. These old beliefs make you endure what you should have walked away from long ago. These people don't just drain your time or energy. They make you doubt your worth. They drown out your inner voice, replacing it with the sigh you try to hide. And the most dangerous part, they make you accustomed to emotional scarcity to the point you forget that true connection never leaves you exhausted. Look closely at the relationships where you must shrink, apologize constantly, or hold everything together. Life never asked you to heal every wounded soul. You were not born to be a shelter for others. If that shelter collapses every time you try to stand tall, what you need isn't to abandon everyone. It's to recognize that your energy is finite. Protecting it is a responsibility to your own life. A true relationship makes you expand, not contract. It gives you room to grow, not burdens to carry. It helps you step into your own light, not dim it for someone else's comfort. And when you step away from the connections that exhaust you, you make space for healthier relationships to find you. Because like every source of energy, your heart can only receive what is new once it is no longer occupied by what depletes you. Number 4, the addiction to being accepted. Energy-draining relationships wear you down slowly, often without your awareness. But there is an even more subtle kind of exhaustion when you erase yourself in exchange for the acceptance of others. The desire to be loved is profoundly human, but when that desire turns into obsession, you begin trading your inner truth for a version of yourself that feels easier for others to embrace. Machiavelli called this the fatal error of seeking to be loved rather than respected. The problem is the shinier that mask becomes, the further your true self is pushed into the shadows. You'll notice yourself nodding when you want to say no, smiling when your heart feels heavy, pretending you're fine when you're clearly breaking. All just to maintain an image of being agreeable, pleasant, and forgiving. But what they love is not you. They love the mask you spent years polishing. Machiavelli understood that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both, because love is fickle, but self-respect is enduring. The greatest fear is not criticism from others. It is confronting the part of yourself you secretly believe is unworthy of love. That very sense of not enough is what fuels your addiction to approval. Every compliment becomes a small dose of relief for the emptiness inside. But the effect never lasts, and so you perform more, try harder, stretch further, desperate to sustain a fragile sense of worth. A young woman who follows our channel once shared her story. She was a textbook people pleaser. At work, she constantly accepted unpaid tasks, stayed late to cover for colleagues, and never said no simply because she feared being disliked or seen as difficult. She lived like a mirror reflecting others' expectations, and ironically, the more she tried to please, the more invisible she became. She no longer knew what she truly wanted. Until one night at 11 p.m., still hunched over her desk, finishing a report that wasn't even hers, her body suddenly trembled from exhaustion. Her eyes burned, her head throbbed, and her hands wanted to let go of the keyboard. And in that exact moment, she realized she was draining herself dry by repeatedly betraying her own limits. She sat there in an office filled only with the hum of the air conditioner, and for the first time in years, she cried. Awakening often arrives quietly like that through the decision to finally look at your own fatigue and acknowledge that it is no longer normal. Through the recognition that if you continue this way, one day you will disappear from your own life without noticing. The addiction to acceptance distorts your boundaries. You begin taking responsibility for the emotions of others while abandoning your own. You continuously adjust yourself to fit whatever space you're in, like a puzzle piece sanding down its edges in hopes of fitting somewhere. But a piece that keeps sanding itself eventually loses its original shape. Machiavelli believed that true security comes from within, not from the applause of the crowd. Because if the acceptance you receive is based on a version of you that isn't real, then that love is not meant for you. It belongs to the performance you're struggling to maintain. And the greater the distance between your essence and your persona, the more your soul becomes depleted. Breaking free from the addiction to acceptance is not about becoming cold or indifferent. It is granting yourself the right to be imperfect, to disappoint someone, to say no, to be wrong, to be different. It is reclaiming the energy you placed in the mask and returning it to your authentic self. Only when you dare to measure your worth by inner standards rather than the applause outside can you truly begin to live. Because the acceptance that matters most never comes from others. It arrives in the moment. You finally turn inward and face yourself. Number 5, the need to know everything in advance. Some people cannot begin unless they can see the entire path ahead. They delay every plan simply because they don't understand step 5. Even though step 1 is right there beneath their feet, clear and ready to be taken today, they believe they are being cautious, thoughtful, anticipating risks. But beneath that confident logic lies a primal fear, the fear of stepping into a territory the unconscious has never experienced. Machiavelli knew that fortune controls half our actions, and we control the other half. You cannot predict every turn, only prepare to meet it. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. When you demand absolute certainty, it is actually your unconscious directing you through old memories and unspoken wounds. The need for control disguises itself as thorough preparation. But what it truly wants is to keep you inside the familiar. You analyze, you calculate, you create every possible scenario. But the more you think, the more anxious you become. The more you prepare, the more unprepared you feel. This endless preparation is not a runway for action. It is procrastination rationalized by the intellect. The truth is no one has a complete map of their life. The map appears only when you start walking. But people obsessed with certainty believe the opposite. They want the map first, every line precise, every turn predictable. But life doesn't operate like an equation you can solve beforehand. It flows like water. It moves when you move, and it reveals the way only when you dare to step into it. The need to know everything is also a defense mechanism shaped by old wounds. If you once made a decision that caused deep pain, the unconscious mind recorded it. It now magnifies risk, convincing you that every new step is dangerous. But the unconscious cannot distinguish between real and imagined danger. It only knows how to warn, and instead of living, you spend most of your time rehearsing failure in your mind, creating hundreds of catastrophic scenarios, 99% of which will never happen. Imagine someone standing before a new door. The door is slightly open, just enough to hint at what lies beyond. Instead of pushing it to see clearly, they sit down and begin guessing. What if it's dangerous? What if it's disappointing? What if no one is there? They guess and guess until they no longer dare to stand up. And the tragedy is this: they never realize that behind that door, a better life might be waiting patiently for them. Machiavelli emphasized that the inner journey does not promise clarity. It promises growth through entering the unknown where you cannot predict or control the outcome. Clarity comes not from standing still, but from a small, decisive movement. Like driving at night, you only see a few dozen meters ahead. Yet those meters are enough to bring you through an entire journey. What keeps many people stuck is not the lack of opportunity, but the lack of trust in their ability to adapt. They fear that once they step into the unknown, they will be inadequate, weak, or unprepared. But you don't discover your strength by staying still. You discover it by stepping into the dark and letting the light form gradually around you. If you wait for every answer to appear before moving, you will wait your whole life. Life asks you to show up, and showing up means accepting that some paths must be walked with intuition, not certainty. What frees you from the need to know everything is not perfect information. It is the courage to say, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I choose to begin anyway. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking with me through half of this journey. It reveals something important. Somewhere within you, a part has already chosen to step beyond old limitations and into a life more honest and aligned. And I hope you stay until the end, because the chapters ahead may open doors you have never dared to approach. If anything you've heard resonates, leave a small sign, a like, a subscribe, so the algorithm continues sending you the messages you need exactly when you need them. The inner journey is long and often lonely, but you don't have to walk it alone. We are here together. Number 6, the promise of I'll do it tomorrow. The need to know everything keeps you at the starting line, but another force slows you just as powerfully, though it sounds gentler. It is the promise everyone has spoken at least once, and the lie we believe most easily. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is the soft pillow, or the unconscious hands you whenever you're about to do something important. It is comforting, safe, soothing, but the price you pay is steep. Time, opportunity, and the respect you owe yourself. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. You are the things you do, not the plans you make or the promises you whisper at night. And your life changes not through intention but through action. What makes I'll do it tomorrow so dangerous is that it sounds reasonable. You're tired, you're busy, you want to wait for the perfect moment. But the truth is none of the reasons you give is the real issue. Procrastination is always a form of self-protection, shielding you from failure, from judgment, from confronting the possibility that you might be capable, but refuse to let yourself find out. Let me share a story about an old friend. She wanted to launch a blog about living alone. For over a year, she repeated, next month, tomorrow, soon. She bought notebooks, a mic, brainstormed topics, everything except starting. Every weekend she found a new reason. I'm too busy today. I need more time to think of better ideas. And while the idea stayed alive, glowing with enthusiasm, her life remained unchanged because she let action slowly wither inside a harmless-looking delay. The truth is, the more you procrastinate, the more your mind believes that what you want doesn't matter. Each time you break a promise to yourself, something inside you dims like a small candle that goes out, not because of the wind, but because you ignored it for too long. People often think procrastination is laziness, but through Machiavelli's lens it is a sign of inner conflict. One part of you wants to grow, another wants to hide. That tension holds you in place, pulled between two forces, one toward the future, one back into old fears. And when you can't choose, you choose the easiest option, doing nothing. Tomorrow is also the illusion of infinity. You believe you have countless days left to do what matters, but in reality, the number of days you have is far fewer than you imagine. Procrastination doesn't just kill dreams. It kills the moments in which you could have become more yourself. The solution isn't sudden discipline. The solution is facing a question everyone avoids. If I don't do this today, how will my life look 1 year from now? If the answer is the same, then you already know what's being buried inside you. Your dream, your vitality, your better self. Number 7, the illusion that success will heal you. But even when you stop procrastinating and start moving forward, there is another far more subtle trap waiting for you ahead. It doesn't hold you still the way delay does. It pushes you to run faster. It is the illusion that success can heal everything inside you. Many people believe that if they have more money, a higher position, or greater recognition, their inner wounds will simply disappear. They think that once they climb high enough, their fears, insecurities, sense of inadequacy, and emotional emptiness will be left behind. But Machiavelli warned that a fortress built on fear is the weakest of all. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakes? Success may take you into a new room, but it cannot replace the mirror you look into every day. If in that mirror you still see someone who never believed they were good enough, then no matter how big the stage you stand on, the emptiness follows you like a shadow. Success does not heal you. It amplifies the wounds you have tried to bury. When you use success to cover your pain, you unintentionally do two things. You run fast to avoid facing yourself, and you place your hope in something that was never meant to heal you. As a result, the higher you climb, the more terrified you become of falling. You earn more money, yet you feel not enough more often. You receive more praise, yet become more fragile when facing criticism. It's like building a beautiful house on unstable ground. Everything looks perfect at first, but one small tremor reveals all the cracks beneath. Many people use busyness as an anesthetic. They work non-stop just to avoid sitting alone with themselves. They call it ambition, hard work, growth. But in truth, it is a sophisticated escape from the fact that their soul has been crying for attention. And what about you? Are you tirelessly chasing something while the part of you that truly needs care is left behind? If you'd like, you can share it in the comments. It might be the beginning of your inner dialogue. Machiavelli believed that what we fail to confront returns as fate. Success may bring applause, but it will also expose your fear of rejection more clearly than ever. It may lift you higher, but it will also make your fall easier if you do not know who you are when the applause fades and you stand alone. The saddest thing is this. Many people finally reach their dreams only to discover that it is not where peace lives because they brought into that dream a soul that had never been healed. And that soul, no matter where you go, will always find a way to speak. There is only one thing that frees you from this illusion: pausing long enough to hear your inner voice, looking into the shadows you avoid and into the inner child you abandoned long ago, accepting that wholeness does not lie at the destination, but in the courage to step into yourself. Number 8. Abandoning the inner child. Every adult carries a child within, not metaphorically or poetically, but as a real psychological entity. Machiavelli saw it as the raw, unguarded core of a person, the part most vulnerable to the world's cruelties. But the problem is this: most of us grow up by forgetting that child. We leave it behind the door of memory, hoping it will stay quiet and stop asking for anything. But it never disappears. It simply learns more subtle ways to speak. You can see this in the smallest, most ordinary moments, when you fear rejection so much your hands tremble, or when you freeze in response to a simple criticism. These reactions do not belong to the adult version of you. They come from the child who was abandoned, invalidated, and forced to be strong too early. That child still lives inside you, trying to protect you in the only ways it knows, through avoidance, control, compliance, or withdrawal. Abandoning the inner child allows old wounds to keep steering you from the shadows. It makes you choose the wrong people, stay in unsafe places, fear success, or sabotage the beautiful things you're given. Machiavelli understood that the unhealed parts of the psyche repeat themselves in life as a form of fate until we develop enough courage to look directly at them. Many people think inner child healing is some complicated ritual. In truth, it begins with the simplest gestures: treating yourself the way a kind adult would treat a hurt child, allowing yourself to feel sad without scolding yourself for being weak, saying no when you're tired instead of pushing through, recognizing that your fear has a history and choosing not to mock it, asking what are you afraid of instead of forcing yourself to be strong. Just like a real child, your inner child doesn't need immediate fixing. It only needs to be heard, acknowledged, to know that you stand with it, not against it. Unlike the adults who once ignored your pain, when you begin caring for your inner child, something remarkable happens. You don't just heal the past, you open the future. You become softer but not weak, stronger but not rigid, mature but not hardened. You stop reacting to wounds and begin acting from awareness. Number 9. Perfectionism disguised as discipline. The inner child is always wounded when you deny your true emotions. But there is another mechanism, more cunning, that fools you into thinking you're doing well, being disciplined, when in reality you're tightening a noose around your own neck. Perfectionism. Perfection sounds noble. It wears the appearance of effort, seriousness, and refinement. But if you look deeply into its nature, you'll see that it doesn't arise from a desire to grow. It arises from fear of judgment. Machiavelli observed that the greatest tragedy of the family is the unlived lives of the parents. Many people carry expectations that never belong to them, but to those who raised them, and then unconsciously turn those expectations into standards by which they punish themselves. Perfectionism doesn't push you forward. It paralyzes you because the mere thought of doing something imperfectly makes you want to retreat. It makes you revise an essay until you're exhausted, but never brave enough to post it. It makes you start a project and abandon it because it doesn't match the idealized version in your mind. It makes you criticize yourself even when you're just beginning. To protect your ego from shame, you choose to do nothing at all. One of our viewers shared his story about starting a mental health podcast. He recorded 3 episodes, honest, thoughtful, with a gentle voice. But each time he listened back and deleted everything. He said his voice wasn't good enough, his ideas weren't deep enough, and his examples weren't persuasive enough. He rewrote scripts over and over only to erase them again. After 6 months, not a single episode was published. That is the root of perfectionism. You fear being seen while still clumsy. You fear the moment others discover you also have flaws, limits, and growing edges. But no one reaches genuine excellence without walking through the awkward first steps. Perfectionism also distorts your view of discipline. Discipline means you keep going even when you're not perfect. Perfection demands you stop unless everything is flawless. One nurtures growth. The other kills motivation before it begins. Perfection pretends to be a high standard, but it is nothing more than a trap that keeps you stuck. Ask yourself, if you post your writing today and it's imperfect, what truly happens? Does your worth vanish? Will someone's validation make your life more meaningful? And if you never begin, how many more years until you allow yourself to be good at something? No one grows from perfection. We grow from showing up, trying, failing, and correcting. That is how you face your shadow, not by erasing it, but by walking through it until you see yourself more clearly. Number 10, the fear of failure and the meaning you attach to it. And perfectionism always walks hand in hand with the fear of failure. According to Machiavelli, failure has no inherent shape. It is merely an event. But, psychologically, failure becomes terrifying because you attach to it a story about your own nature. That you are not good enough, not worthy enough. The fear of failure often originates in early experiences when a small mistake was magnified into something enormous, or when the only recognition you ever received came from getting things right. Over time, the unconscious formed a distorted belief. Wrong means bad, wrong means shameful, wrong means abandonment, and so instead of trying, you choose to stay still. Instead of moving forward, you choose safety. You are not running from failure itself. You are running from the shame you imagine it will bring. The fear of failure makes you live like someone walking a tightrope, always staring into the abyss, never daring to look up at the sky. You become trapped in endless calculations. What if I fail? What if no one cares? What if they laugh at me? But you forget the more important questions. What might open for me if I try? What part of me might grow if I dare to take one more step? Machiavelli once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." From a Machiavellian perspective, failure is not an ending. Each time you step into the place you fear, you don't just learn a new skill. You learn something about yourself. your capacity to adapt, to rise again, to see life with steadier eyes. When you separate your worth from your outcomes, failure becomes a part of growth, not a threat. It is like learning to ride a bicycle. You cannot keep your balance without falling a few times, but no one believes that a child who falls is less capable. They understand that falling is the only way to learn. What liberates you is not ensuring that you will never be wrong. What liberates you is the courage to say to yourself, even if I fail, I am still myself and I can try again. As you reach the end of this journey, you may realize something. What needs to be removed is not who you are, but the layers of dust that have settled on your soul after years of living in fear, expectation, and masks. The good news is you do not need to become someone else to begin changing. You only need to return to the self you abandoned while growing up. Letting go of old things is not a battle against the past. It is an act of clearing the path for your future. Everything you release does not make you smaller. It gives you back the space to breathe, to live, to hear the truest voices within you. And if there is one message you take away from all of this, it is this: no one can walk through the new doorway for you. Now only one question remains. Do you have the courage to take the first step?